and we'll say the pledge. I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, everyone, for attending tonight. Our first item on the agenda is 1.2, the approval of the minutes of the regular meeting of the Board of Mayor and Aldermen held on March 16, 2021. Are there any corrections? Motion made by Vice Mayor Harris, a second by Alderman Arnold. Any corrections? Okay, we're ready for a vote. Anyone like to change their vote? Please record the votes.
Motion passes 7-0.
Thank you. 1.3, our public hearing. Our first public hearing will be Ordinance 21-03, an ordinance establishing a new fee schedule and calculation methods for building permits. If there's anyone that would like to speak, please come to the mic, state your name, and you have 2 minutes to speak. If there's no one that would like to speak for the public hearing is closed. Public hearing number 2, Ordinance 21-04, ordinance establishing a new permit fee schedule for mechanical and gas piping system. If there's anyone that'd like to speak, please come to the mic, state your name, and you have 2 minutes. No one would like to speak? The public hearing is closed. 1.4, a presentation from Retail Coach. I'd like to call Austin Farmer to the mic. So glad you could join us, and sorry that you couldn't get here last month due to weather.
Yes, ma'am. We had quite the snow event in Texas, so we were shut down. I was hoping to be here last month, but happy to be here again. It's great to see you, Mayor and Board, and thank you so much for having me. Wanted to give an update on where we're at in our project with retail recruitment. We just renewed our contract for another year and wanted to fill you in on ultimately where we've been the last couple of years, where we've seen some success, and then ultimately where our focus is this year in terms of where we think we can see some success and ultimately where we want to go. Let me see if I can advance this here. There we go. So want to talk a little bit about the scope of work and the progress we've made to this point. We're going into our 3rd year with the city, and so as we've done that work for the first 2 years, we've ultimately completed 6 different phases of work. So we started with a market analysis, so coming in and really identifying where the retail market is in the community. So ultimately looking at things like consumer data and cell phone data to identify who your real customer is and ultimately what your retail trade area is. So where people are coming from to shop and dine in the community. And from there, ultimately looked at where we see retail opportunities. So where in the community is there opportunity for new retail, for redevelopment or infill development? Ultimately, where are there new development opportunities? You're in a great position as a growing community where you have some new development opportunities for the future, so really identifying those as well. We also looked at retailer matching and retailer developer matching. So we came up with a list of retailers that we started with to recruit to the community and then ultimately have expanded that list. And from there, put together marketing and branding materials that we could go out and really promote the community and send to retailers and developers to get them interested in the market. And from there, and where we are now is we're in that actual retailer and developer recruiting process. So we're actively recruiting retailers and developers to the community and are working with Ryan and some of the city staff to really do what we can to get them interested in the market and then ultimately pass them off to property owners and developers here in town. So I want to talk through some of the data just to give you some background and context. Talk about retail trade area. So in our market analysis, our goal was to identify what your primary retail trade area is, and that's ultimately where people are coming from to shop and dine in the community. If you've lived here long or even a short period of time, you know people are coming from outside the community to come in and shop and dine. One of the interesting things about your community is your daytime population. You actually have more people coming into the community during the day than most what I would call suburban or rural communities have. So you have people coming in, whether it's for industry, for the courthouse, just to come in and work. You've got people passing through the community, and that's really important for us to not only know but go out and really help sell the community to retailers and developers. And so what we're looking at on the screen here, this blue odd-looking shape is what we call that retail trade area. And what's interesting about this is the way that we actually defined this, we hand drew this retail trade area based on cell phone data from shoppers and diners, GPS data from their cell phones, which sounds really scary, but there's a lot of protections, so we don't know what Ryan per se is doing or where he's going. But ultimately, if you have one of the top 1,000 apps from either the Google or Apple App Store on your phone, and you allow it to use location settings, then we can track that data. And so we can actually see with pretty good accuracy, probably about 99% accuracy, where people are coming from when they're coming into the community. And so that's what this circle is. We actually were able to hand draw around where there's pockets of people that are coming into and out of the community. And that just helps us really paint a better picture. So when you look at your city population, most retailers won't necessarily be familiar with the community. They might not have visited. And so they'll look on a map and they'll see, a sub 20,000 population for the city limits. And they might assume that there's not enough population here for them to come into the community. And when we look at this retail trade area, it helps push you up over that next bar. So a lot of retailers and restaurants will look for at least 50,000 people in a retail trade area. And so this helps make you a lot more competitive because we can go prove to them that you're not just your city limit population, that you actually are pulling from the region. And we looked at what we call a secondary retail trade area as well. We don't have that in this presentation, but for things that are regional or unique, you actually have an even larger draw area. So, for a wholesale clubs like a Sam's per se, you'd actually extend that boundary out and pull from even further. And so really the point of that is to just highlight the community's potential and really go and sell that so you're not underselling the city by just looking at your city limits population. A couple of notes there. We've got some income figures on there for average household income and median household income. Those numbers are important to retailers because retailers essentially come in and will kind of diagnostically look at a community. And they'll say, okay, we need X population. So we need 50,000 people in this retail trade market. We need the average household income to be up over 75,000. And those are really the two most important figures really out of the gate for retailers. And on both fronts, you guys look really strong on both of those areas. So it's important for us to know that, and it's important just from a comparable perspective to know that those are strong numbers that retailers are going to be looking for. It's a little hard to see this, but this is a breakdown of that retail trade area by population, education, attainment, income, age distribution, and race distribution. I won't go through all of that, but needless to say, your demographics look good. Right, so when we look at this, if I were looking at this through the eyes of a retailer or site selector, you look like a growing community. You're obviously in a fast-growing region with the entire kind of greater Nashville area growing and expanding. Your age distribution looks good. You're not an older population. Your average and median ages are just under 40. And then your age distribution with young children and families is really strong. And so what that looks like to a retailer is that you are a growing community that has young families and a lot of growth opportunity for retail stores and restaurants. So on all of those kind of diagnostic levels, the community looks great. So that's been really helpful for us as we go out and talk to retailers and restaurants to have that data, and then ultimately to be able to prove it with that GPS data has been really helpful. We've had some conversations with retailers, quite frankly, that I didn't think would be interested in the community that have looked at this data and said, hey, we actually might be interested in this community. So it's been helpful to have that, and I think it helps make you a lot more competitive than just using some of those standard models. This is going to be really hard to see, but this is what we call retail gap analysis. So once we looked at the market data and did our market analysis, we look at ultimately where there's retail opportunity in terms of retail leakage. So we saw who's coming into the community, but what we look at after that is where is money going when it leaves the community? So what are people leaving the community to go buy elsewhere? So are they going to eat at places outside the market? Are they going to buy certain clothing items in other areas? And this retail gap analysis helps us quantify that. So it gives us a number in terms of the potential amount of retail sales that should be happening in each of those categories in the city versus how much was actually captured in the city limits. And then that helps us identify where there's categories where people are leaving the market. And so some of your top categories, let's see if this makes sense to y'all, but some of your top categories are fast casual and full service restaurants, which makes a ton of sense. You know, just having been to the market a handful of times, I think that's one of the areas that's important for us to focus. Certainly full-service restaurants, you have a few, but you're certainly lacking compared to some other things, and there's a lot of people leaving to go eat at in other markets, at places they can go sit down for an hour, 2 hours, or get something a little more unique. Clothing stores, so family, women, children's clothing, pretty much across those entire category. So you have a huge gap there, so I think there's opportunity there. And then just some general merchandise and discount department type stores. So the TJ Maxx's of the world, there's a lot of opportunity in those categories. And so this helps us focus in terms of how we prioritize our recruitment and ultimately who we think we can go fill those gaps with. So from there, we put together marketing and branding materials. Those are important for us to have ready so that we can go and engage retailers and developers at things like regional and national conferences. So part of our process, we put together retail site profiles. So we have a list of key priority sites in the community that are ready for retail, and that's a mix of plot of land that could be developed where you could do a ground-up development. It's redevelopable land, existing sites, for instance, the Shoney site that's been scraped recently. So having a list of those ready to go with all that data for retailers, custom demographics and market data that we can send out to those retailers. And then that bottom one there, it's got the Hobby Lobby logo on it. We put together custom feasibility packages for all of the retailers and restaurants that we're trying to recruit. So we put all that data in one packet for them that highlights what's important for them. So we show them the leakage numbers for their specific retail category. It has store spacing in there and shows them where their local stores are, really highlighting the opportunities specifically for that retailer. And so from there, we get into the recruitment part, and that's where our focus has been really the last 8 to 9 months, and where it will be for the majority of this portion of our contract, for this contract that we just renewed. And we have actively been recruiting more than 50 retailers and restaurants. And so through that process, we started with those 25 that we had originally set out as our retailer match list back in 2019. We went and recruited those retailers. We've had some success there. We've also had some good momentum. And so as we started going through that process, as we got feedback from those original retailers, we've added or removed and continued to evolve that retailer match list. And so we're up to 50 that we're actively recruiting right now. Some of those will come back and tell us that there's interest, but just not right now. And so we'll keep them in our pipeline, and we'll communicate with them once a quarter, follow up with them, make sure that we're on their radar. Some will tell us, hey, it's just not a market fit, and so we'll move those off and come back and replace with other retailers that we think there's opportunity for. And so we're actively in that process right now. As part of that process, we're having monthly update calls with Ryan and Candace so that there's visibility. They have access to a dashboard where they can see all the retailers that we've talked to. They can see their feedback directly. So that way there's not, we're not going months between communicating and really getting that feedback. And ultimately, I think it's been a relatively smooth process. We've had some exciting developments with a couple of retailers lately that hopefully we can share in the near future, but it's been great to coordinate with Ryan and Candace and a couple of local stakeholders in the community to try to make those things happen. So we're excited about that. We think the process has been working. We've had a few successes. I think we've got a lot of momentum, though. The biggest part of that I think right now is important is momentum coming out of COVID. So most of 2020 was kind of a holding pattern for most retailers and restaurants. Despite that, we've had some really good progress, but we're excited about coming out of that. So we think that by mid to end of summer, we should be at 100% full recovery. I think Tennessee's a strong state. You guys have been basically acting like COVID doesn't exist anymore. I'm from Texas, I can say that. We've been doing the same thing. But, I think the recovery is going to be faster here than it is in other places. I'm doing a lot of work in Michigan and California. I think there's going to be a huge lag for those states, more so than this market and some other states. So we see that as a huge opportunity, especially with the momentum that we already have. I was on a call yesterday with a retailer who used the term post-COVID, and they're already talking about post-COVID growth. They see this as a post-COVID market. So I think coming out of that, we're in a place now where a lot of the conversations we've been having for, in some cases, a year plus, where there has been interest from retailers, I think that's at a point where that's going to pop. So we should see some of those come to fruition and hopefully get some letters of intent out of that. So where we go from here, build on that success we had, right? So we've had some good success. We want more success than we've already had, right? We think it's good that we've gotten a couple things, but we want to double and triple that. And so our focus is working the pipeline that we have in place right now. So getting those that we've had interest from into place, getting them into the community, getting site visits set up. And there's a couple of key areas of focus that we have around that. So fast casual and full-service restaurants is a big key area of focus for us right now. Big box and large national retailers is another focus. So kind of that next step up to some of those retailers that you don't have yet. And then family entertainment. So the trampoline parks of the world, the kind of family-friendly centers, the larger spaces where you can go and have birthday parties and family entertainment. Those are kind of our core focus, especially for the next couple of quarters, just because there's a lot of movement coming out of COVID there, and those are big gaps in the community. One thing I will say too is I think it's important to note why retailers aren't coming to the community. So the ones that have told us that they're not coming to the community, a lot of cases it ends up being certain things like demographics don't work or we just don't like the community. For you, it's different than that. So for you, it's mostly timing and positioning. So most of the retailers that have told us no haven't actually said they don't like the market. They've actually said, hey, we like this market. We see some opportunity here. We just think the timing's off. We need a couple of years for that population to get up just a tad bit, or we need to see what happens with a competitive retailer that's in the market or that's come to the market. So I think that's a really good sign, as opposed to, there are communities that we work in where we go out there and we just get a blanket no. They don't like the community. They don't, it doesn't really fit. We haven't seen that as much. So that's been a good sign in the sense that we think there's short-term opportunity, but we also think there's longer-term opportunity. So we're excited to see what happens over the next 12 months. And with that, I'd love to open it up to any questions that you have. Or
Thank you for the job you've been doing, because I know it's not been easy during COVID, but y'all have continued to charge on, and there's a lot of exciting things that, you have to chase a lot of elephants before you catch one.
Yep, absolutely. Thank you.
Questions? Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. First of all, I'm a native Texan, so let's go.
Yes, sir.
The Shawnee, don't hate on me. The Shawnee's area, as I look back over the years, it was doing great business, just booming. I'm hoping that we could attract something like a Logan's or a Longhorn, or maybe something, give Applebee's or something on that level again.
They're working hard on that.
I know, and I appreciate what you're doing.
Yep.
But because that quarter, if you just sit back and see, it's a lot of traffic there,
Yep.
And I feel someone would. But thanks anyway.
Yes, sir.
And I'm South Texas, South Boston.
There you go. No, I appreciate it.
Mr. Harris?
And I agree with you. I flew into town early yesterday morning. I've been in town the last couple of days, and I think every time I come, the traffic has picked up even more. I was on Memorial yesterday at 2:30 in the afternoon, and it's just stacked up.
1:30 to 3 o'clock.
Yeah, in between, Tom Austin, a lot of the areas, just the thoroughfares are super busy, and especially in that important daytime population. So we agree. We've been working hard on a lot of those casual sit-down restaurants, full-service restaurants. So we're
One last comment.
Yeah.
When I see the Jimmy John's come in, that shows me hope.
Yep.
Because they usually don't move in unless the conditions
Jersey
are
Mike's.
right.
Jersey Mike's.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep, yeah.
Mr. Harris?
Just to commend you on the work that y'all have done.
Thank you.
My first 2 years on the board, the group we did not hear anything from them very much as far as reports. You're at least providing us information. I know your success is probably judged by what can be seen visually instead of what's going on behind the scenes, but I think y'all are doing a good job of getting our name out there and the city, and hopefully we're gonna have good results from it.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Mr. Gregg?
Is it possible to get a copy of some of these maps and statistics that you were showing us?
Yes, sir. Absolutely. We can work through Ryan. Yep,
Be good to have. I'm sure we'll be getting questions.
yep.
Everybody's watching you live.
Can I
Yeah.
add a
Yes, sir.
comment, Mayor? Just so you all know, when they did this, when we first did this with the retail coach, they did the retail gap analysis and the retail trade area analysis, and we actually provided that data. We had a meeting here with our local, with our downtown businesses, with our small businesses, because the idea is not to drive those out, bringing in people to drive those out. So we opened the book up and let them know where that leakage was if they wanted to pick up additional product lines. So the retail coach just isn't about bringing in new retailers and to the, diminishing your current small businesses. They want to help the community, and so we really appreciate them doing that for us.
Yeah, thank you for mentioning that. We forgot to mention, we had a workshop with all of our existing local business owners, and we update that cell phone data every year, and it's valuable information that Fortune 500 retailers use, so we share that with local businesses too, because we want them to leverage that, and we don't want to replace anybody. We love local business. We just want to fill gaps, and so we just want to expand retail, whether that's local or bringing in national retailers. So.
Thank you. Anybody else before he leaves the podium? Appreciate your hard work.
Yeah, thank you
Keep
so
it
much.
up.
I'm going to stick around through the meeting too, so if you have any questions after, I'll be here.
Thank you so
Thank you,
much.
appreciate it.
We'll move on to our legislative portion of our meeting. 2.1, discuss and possible take action on ordinance 21-01 on a third and final reading. An ordinance amending the fiscal year 2021's annual budget for the city of Springfield by amending certain general funds and utility funds operating budgets. Motion made by Alderman Gregg and a second by Alderman Green to discuss. This is our third and final reading. Are there any questions? No questions? We're ready for a vote. Anyone like to change their vote? Please record the votes.
Motion passes 7-0.
Thank you. 2.2, discuss and possible take action on ordinance 21-02 on a third and final reading. Ordinance establishing the schedule of fees for the city of Springfield cemeteries by rescinding ordinance 13-07 in its entirety and substituting a new schedule of fees. Motion made by Alderman Green to discuss and a second by Alderman Hubbard. Any questions on this third and final reading of the fees? No questions? We're ready for a vote. Anyone like to change their vote? Please record the votes.
Motion passes 7-0.
Thank you. 2.3, discuss and possible take action on ordinance 21-03 on a second reading. An ordinance establishing a new fee schedule and calculating methods for building permits. Do we have a motion to discuss? Motion made by Alderman Gregg and a second by Alderman Hubbard. Questions on this second reading? No questions or discussion? We're ready for a vote. Anyone like to change their vote? Please record the votes.
Motion passes 7-0.
Thank you. 2.4, discuss and possible take action on ordinance 21-04 on a second reading. An ordinance establishing a new permit fee schedule for mechanical and gas piping systems. We need a motion to discuss. Motion made by Alderman Green and a second by Alderman Hubbard. Questions? No questions? No discussion? We're ready for a vote. Anyone like to change their vote? Please record the votes.
Motion passes 7-0.
Thank you. 2.5, discuss and possible take action on resolution 21-09 on a third and final reading. A resolution annexing approximately 15.3 acres of property owned by Clay Jones Construction LLC, located in the 9th Civil District, including a portion of the right-of-way of Wallace Road, which is approximately 0.46 acres. Motion to discuss made by Alderman Hubbard and a second by Alderman Green. Questions on this third and final reading? No questions? We're ready for a vote. Anyone like to change their vote? Please record the votes.
Motion passes 7-0.
Thank you. 2.6, discuss and possible take action on resolution 21-10 on a third and final reading. A resolution annexing 5 acres of property owned by Equity Trust Company located in the Ninth Civil District, including a portion of right-of-way of Laura Road, approximately .17 acres. A motion to discuss made by Alderman Green and a second by Alderman Gregg. Any questions on this third and final reading? No questions? We're ready for a vote. Anyone like to change their vote? Please record the votes.
Motion passes 7-0.
You know what that means. Next month, we'll have a lot of first readings. And then you'll get to read again. 2.7, discuss and possible take action on Resolution 21-16, a resolution declaring certain properties surplus and authorizing the disposal of such properties. Motion made by Alderman Hubbard to discuss and a second by Alderman Green. Questions on the disposal? No questions? We're ready for a vote. Anyone like to change their vote? Please record the votes.
Motion passes 7-0.
Thank you. 2.8, discuss and possible take action on Resolution 21-17, a resolution, oh, I just did that.
No, you're good.
Oh, no, that's the same thing.
Similar.
Okay, let me just start over. 2.8 is what we're ready for. I was just making sure everybody was awake. Discuss and possible take action on Resolution 21-17, a resolution declaring certain real property surplus and authorizing the disposal of such properties. Motion made by Vice Mayor Harris and a second by Alderman Gregg to discuss.
Question,
Yes, sir.
what building is this for the public's knowledge?
It's the Precision Products Building on Central Avenue, the former Precision Products Building, I guess I should say.
What are you proposing, or how's it being proposed that this be sold? It's not going to be at this bid on it and come back in 10 days or 30 days and change. I mean, are we gonna sell this piece of property, or how's it gonna be done?
We propose to list it the same way we listed the Queen Anne Courthouse, the Ninth Avenue Building, the same way we just did the last ones that weren't tax sale properties. That seemed to work out very well, and list them for a period of time and bring you all back the best offer.
We bought this property when, in 2011?
2011,
And paid what?
140,000, I believe, for it. The building has kind of gone into disrepair at this point in time, and it's one of those situations where we're either going to have to spend a lot of money to fix it. We have no, based on our strategic plan, we have no future need for it. We're going to be consolidating. So whenever that comes to pass, so we had held on to it. We actually were going to bring it to you all when we did the last ones, but we were holding on to it because we were possibly going to use it as a property swap in one of our wastewater condemnation proceedings. And that didn't pan out, so we're ready to move forward with
Do we know of
surplusing
any
it.
interest in it?
I think there is some
Yes.
interest in it. There's some, I think the
I've had a couple calls.
biggest challenge is the building is not salvageable, really, and so it was going to require a scrape, and we had actually gotten a price for a demo and asbestos abatement if we were going to do it, or if we were going to do a property swap. And so there's a decent amount of money that have to be put into it, but that where that property is situated is very, very valuable right now, and the mayor's had some interest in it too.
So you would not foresee us having to consider taking less than what we paid for it?
No.
I don't think so.
Do you think it's a scrape?
I think it is a scrape, and I think that it depends on, we received one quote for asbestos abatement and demolition, and I think that was close to, Mr. Brewer, correct me if I'm wrong, if you remember, about 100,000 or a little less than that. So I think it's worth more than that. I think it's worth more than what we paid for it. Obviously, I think we would have to take into consideration the fact that, truthfully, we've sat there and not done anything with it, and the building has continued to deteriorate for quite some time. So that's cost us some of our investment.
And for the ones of you who've been on the board for a while, you know, we've discussed in prior meetings whether or not we were going to do anything with that building. We never came to any decision, so I think it's time for it to go.
It is beyond. It's an eyesore, and certainly want to put any major money in it.
Any more discussion? Questions? Any other questions? We're ready for a vote. Anyone like to change their vote? Please record the votes.
Motion passes 7-0.
Thank you. 3.1, discuss and possible take action on the adjustments of the retail electric rates for the Springfield Electric Department due to the wholesale fuel cost adjustment by the Tennessee Valley Authority. Motion made by Alderman Hubbard to discuss, and second by Vice Mayor Harris. Mr. Sacks.
Good news this month is 3.6% decrease.
Thank you.
You are welcome.
We like your direction. Any discussion? No discussion, we're ready for a vote. Let's vote fast before it goes up. Anyone like to change their vote? Please record the votes.
Motion passes 7-0.
3.2, discuss and possible take action on the adjustments of the monthly gas rates for the Springfield Gas Department. Motion to discuss. Motion made by Alderman Hubbard and a second by Alderman Green. Mr. Dean Scott, do you have the same kind of news?
It's close, it's just the other direction.
Wrong direction.
It's an increase of 1.64%.
Okay. We won't beat you up since you're filling in tonight.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
Any discussion? No discussion, we're ready for a vote. Anyone like to change their vote? Please record the votes.
Motion passes 7-0.
Thank you. 3.3, discuss and possible take action to approve a recommendation from Vice Mayor Harris to appoint Gina Holt to the Beer Board as a representative of Ward 4 to fulfill the unexpired term of Baird Shelton. The term will expire June 30th, 2022. Motion made by Vice Mayor Harris and a second by Alderman Trotter. And I will say that Mr. Shelton has moved outside into the county, and we appreciate what he's done.
I would like to thank Ms. Holt for being willing to serve. I did ask her by text, and when she texted back yes, I called to make sure that she knew exactly what that text said, but she was very, very willing to be involved and very willing to serve.
Well, thank you for asking her, because I know she knows all the rules and regulations for the Beer Board. Any discussion? We're
She'll
ready
keep
for,
them straight.
yes, sir, she will. We're ready for a vote. Anyone like to change their vote? Please record the votes.
Motion passes 7-0.
Somebody go call her and make sure she knows she's been appointed to the Beer Board and anything else we might have in the near future.
I'm
Tell
gonna
her to-
text her here in just a minute.
Tell her to beware. 3.4, discuss and possible take action to approve the interlocal agreement to convey a dump truck to the Robertson County Board of Education. Do we have a motion to discuss? Motion made by Alderman Gregg and a second by Alderman Green. Questions about this?
Mayor? I
Yes,
would
sir.
just like to say that I think a lot of the city residents sometimes don't understand that we don't have control of a lot of what takes place with the school system. I mean, that comes under the county.
Yes, sir.
This board, we conveyed them some property, and we're going to convey them this truck. And I think it's good for this board and this city to support the school system in any way that we can.
Yes, sir.
Very much in favor of doing this.
Whether we're going into the schools ourselves as volunteers, or we're doing things like this to help the school system in any way that possible. I know several of you sitting up here will go and read when they actually let us back into the schools and participate. So I would encourage everyone to go out and help the school system. Yes, sir.
I'm for supporting the school system, but there are certain things that we really need to sort of investigate in the school system, because we want fairness all the way across, from personnel all the way down to future plans of what they're gonna do with some of our, for instance, junior high programs, okay? So there is certain discussions we need to deal with them. I can't give them a clear 100% score, okay? I have my reservations.
Okay. Any other discussion? No other discussion? We're ready for a vote. Anyone like to change their vote? Please record the votes.
Motion passes 7-0.
Thank you. 3.5, discuss and possible take action on change order number 1 to the CSXT drainage project and Memorial Boulevard contract with Garney Construction in the amount of $6,156.04. The new contract amount will be $1,376,485.04. Motion to discuss made by Alderman Hubbard, a second by Alderman Green. Questions on this change order? It's a small.
Where are they at on the project, Mr.?
Fortunately, finished. The contractor is finished. If you notice, we had the recent flash floods. Seemed like we had 3 or 4 of them, and there was no flooding on Memorial Boulevard. So the culvert has been repaired underneath the railroad crossing. What we're finishing up now is restoration, so grass, asphalt, and curbing.
Are
Okay.
there still any talks with CSX, or is that all ceased, or
As far
is
as,
any more funding from them, from the railroad?
we did get the funding, that was, the 534,000, I guess. We did receive that.
We did receive the other half of it.
We did, or we're getting ready to receive it. We've invoiced them for it. I believe we haven't received it yet. Yeah,
But they're, to this point, they're paying it.
they've agreed to pay.
Thank you.
And they will pay for this final touches.
That's part of the project cost. So the contractor's doing the grass, and then we come back in and do the asphalt and the curbing.
That makes my ward look good.
Yes, it does.
Even though the money we're spending, we're still probably coming out a little bit better than we thought.
Oh, we're coming out much better than we thought. With their participation, much better. And this is a small change order. This is just for a detention pond, so this is really minute in the grand scheme of the project. But
And
yeah.
this was overlooked in the first contract.
Yeah, in the original design.
And like he says, it's small.
And they're, in this amount, then they're paying over 500 of that.
It's sort of a complicated arrangement because they're paying us $534, but we have to pay them for flagging, and we're actually gonna get a considerable amount of that sum back that was unused, maybe around $60,000 to $70,000, but we had to deposit over $100,000 with them for flagging. It's a complicated arrangement with CSX, but all in all, we were very fortunate to have their participation and their help with this project. So, and glad it's finished or close to being finished.
Yes. Memorial Boulevard is much better off now. Any other questions, discussion? We're ready for a vote. Anyone like to change their vote? Please record the votes.
Motion passes 7-0.
Thank you. 3.6, discuss and possible take action to ratify the emergency purchase of HVAC unit for the Legacy Golf Course. Motion to discuss made by Alderman Hubbard and a second by Alderman Gregg. Any questions?
Has this already been done?
Yes.
It has been done.
It was an emergency purchase.
Yeah, this is a ratification of, essentially, when it got warm outside again and it was time to turn the air on in the clubhouse, the air wouldn't work. So they needed to make some replacements on the HVAC system. So this is just a ratification of that emergency purchase, and it was taken care of out of operating funds.
So when we
Yes.
do something like that, where is the decision made of who's going to be used to supply what was put in there? Is that somebody they have used in the past, or is that?
It's generally out of convenience, whoever's available. We just had an emergency situation at the fire department where there was only one company available to respond, so it kind of varies by situation. Mr. Frazier's here, if he had contact with the contractor, if you wish for him to speak to how he made that decision on who to contact.
I would like some explanation on that, please.
Thank you for being here tonight to answer our questions.
We actually contacted 3 different contractors to come out, take a look at it, assess the situation, and determine what needed to be done. One came out, gave us a quote for the one that we actually used. Another came out, gave us the same information, but did not give us a quote because it was 3-phase units, and he just didn't feel comfortable dealing with that. And the other one come out and gave us a quote for 2. His quote was based on a little different scenario, I guess, because we were looking at a repair of one that was, I don't even know how to really phrase that. We had 3 units. One that was air only, which when we turned it on this spring, did not come on. Needed complete replacement. And then a second one that was air and heat, and it's got a leaky coil, but it's an old unit, and the cost to repair it was going to be extensive, nearing the cost to replace it. So the third quote only quoted did not quote that unit, but it was still right at the same price as the other one, which did quote that unit,
Thank you.
if that made any sense.
Any other? Clear as mud. Any other questions while he's at the mic? Yes, sir.
A comment. I paid a visit last week, and I was quite impressed.
Well, thank you.
Quite calm. It was a little warm, so it was quite comfortable in there. And the plate looks good. And, you know, quite naturally, as one of the leaders, I just sort of did a little interviewing of some of the participants, and everybody gave it excellence.
Oh, good. That's great to hear.
Everybody,
Thank you.
so, you know, everybody was pleased with it, and so.
You play?
I know, y'all wasn't by.
that your
But I'm elated because I go way back, okay?
Yeah.
And I'm glad to see that we have a first-rate, well-run golf course, okay? Because at one time, back in my automatic days, I was like,
Well, we appreciate
but
that.
you guys doing a great job.
We appreciate
And
it.
it was nice meeting the replacement. Is he there? He was really
Kevin.
nice.
Any other questions? I will say that I got to play on Sunday afternoon after church. It's in great shape. If you haven't been out to Legacy Golf Course, please come out. I met somebody from Iowa that was playing in front of us, and they were very impressed with the course. So it's always fun to hear the compliments of what a great job y'all are all doing, all three of you. So thank you. Any other questions about this? Or we vote? We're ready for a vote. Anyone like to change their vote? Please record the votes.
Motion passes 7-0.
Thank you. 3.7, discuss and possible take action on the proposal of the fiscal year 2021-2022 annual budget for the Springfield-Robertson County Joint Airport Board and a presentation from the board. Motion to discuss by Alderman Hubbard, a second. Second made by Vice Mayor Harris. I'd like to call Jamie Jones to the podium for the presentation to talk about the budget.
I'm going to go over the slide, and thank you all for having me, Mayor, City Manager, Alderman. Thanks for having us. I'm going to go through this slide presentation, and I'm going to call up Paul to help me with some of the budget items on there. And just so you know that the last 18 months that we've taken over the management of the airport, we've come an awful long way. I still have a few faces I need to see at the airport. You can raise your hand. I'd be glad to give you a first-class tour. Let's see. Did you say push just the button on that? Just the up and down button. Got you. Okay. Mm-hmm. I'm good with technology. I have this stuff. Okay. We got one typo there. Got to take a zero out of the runway. Other than that, we are really focused on the airport right now into management and administration. We do offer some of the services that many airports do as far as what they call a fixed-based operator, but we predominantly try to manage the airport and handle the administration with whatever resources we have to give people personal assistance if necessary. That doesn't put us into situations that would cause a liability. But our main focus right now is to make sure that our runways and taxiways are operational along with our lights, that we maintain a good partnership with our fuel vendor to keep our prices low and competitive, and we handle as many pilot services we can to keep people coming into the community to rotate those dollars in as they fly in. Very much like your retail partner that came in here to discuss, we actually track all the flight operations as well. So we have equipment in there that allows us to be able to track the aircraft as they come in and out of the airport if they have that equipment, which is almost completely mandated by the FAA at this point. So on an average, we run about 16,000 flight operations a year. And that's just ones we track. There's still many aircraft out there that fly in our airport that do not have that technology on board yet. So we're probably pushing 20,000 flight operations a year out at the airport. And of course, a lot of that is going to be weather dependent, et cetera, but that's our yearly average on that. And feel free to ask any questions, guys, as I go along. When I first started at the airport about 18 months ago, we had 52 aircraft based at the airport. We're now up to 80 as our last census with the FAA. That's a considerable increase. Every building, every hangar, and nearly every tie-down is taken up out there except for what I use for transient people coming in and out. I'm at full capacity, and we're ready for growth. We have 5 commercial tenants out there right now, and 2 maintenance, one handles avionics as well. We have agricultural, and we also have the one that you guys know about, which is the aircraft recovery business. I can give you a little update on it. It's gonna go here soon. They're probably sooner than the contract is gonna go. They're working on the property out there in the Barren Plains area to make that happen. It's just slow. Weather kind of held them back quite a bit this spring. This is important because this is why we're here. The focus on the based aircraft. The based aircraft is the aircraft that we have that are non-commercial tenants on the airport. They're just individuals that may have a private business or their private airplane. They put it in a hangar. They're responsible for almost the same amount of fuel in revenue as my transient customers that just fly in from all over. And that's a pretty big deal considering that 42 out of those 46 hangars was basically 90% of our fuel revenue under that percentage. So we're here because we want to talk about putting additional 30 hangars in. Is everybody been up to speed on that a little bit, Ryan?
Yes.
Okay. We're ready for that. Of course, funding is the first and foremost how we're trying to figure this out. And I know everybody wants to see us grow. Those 30 hangars, we can supply some of the debt ceiling on that, the debt service to it, and some of it we would need some assistance from the city and the county. But we are definitely at a point, and I think I know all of our board members and Ryan, you've agreed, and the mayor's agreed. We do need to move forward, but we just need to figure out how we can do that, whether we get an outside investor to do this or the city and the county. But we wanted to make sure that the city and the county had a shot at this before we started moving on to another mode of trying to build them. But this is how our fuel breaks out, because that really tells us what's happening as people are coming into the airport. Mayor, you look like you have questions.
No, we're good.
Okay.
We'll take questions at the end.
Okay. The hangar waiting list, so looking at wanting to build 30 hangars, one thing we do is develop the interest. I have 50 people on the waiting list, 30 of which have already paid forward the first month's rent, which sits in escrow. So the moment those 30 hangars are built, they're ready to go forward. Could almost even sign a contract with them if they're so excited about having 30 hangars. That was really the way to find out what the interest was in the general public. What is interesting is that nearly half of the people that are going to these new hangars are Robertson County residents. So I created a hangar waiting list program like no other airport in the country has done. I based it off of our county-based aircraft, non-residents, and anybody who wishing to buy a plane. The reason why I did that is because across the country, most managers, when they do hangar waiting lists, if you pick up the phone call, you call them, you get on the list. There's no skin in the game. And there's no taking care of your people in your locality. I wanted to change that whole value. It's actually worked out really well and people appreciate it. Now we have a system in place that we take care of Robertson County first. Then we take care of our based aircraft because we're already paying rent out there or have an airplane parked out on the flight line. And then we do the non-residents such as Sumner County, Davidson County. And that represents, Mon County, we've got 5 people in based aircraft, we have about 11. So we have a lot of, you can see that we can put most of the hangars that we build would basically go for people that are already either run Robertson County or ready to come into Robertson County because they're probably someplace else. But yeah, so there's a total of 50 and 30 that have been pretty much approved and waiting. Our current hangar and tie-down status, oops, bear with me, trying to catch up here. We have 3 commercial hangars, 3 commercial buildings. They're totally different. All of those buildings are on leases right now. Non-commercial, we have 46 T hangars total. 42 of those are, we'll call them newer, and 4 of them are from the original building that was built in 1964, I do believe. And yes, they need to be torn down at some point. So we're patching them together to keep them up until TDOT tells us otherwise. Tie downs, that's something we really never focused on in the airport until I took over. With that being said, we have a total of 29 tie downs. We actually create non-term or long-term lease program. We did those, but we just never had that many. And I could have many more if I wanted to. I'm just out. I'm out of tie downs. I have 3 tie downs that I'm using for transit. That means somebody comes in, wants to visit the city and the county, or take the courtesy car into Nashville for something, or just pick something. I only have 3. So I have to be very creative how I move aircraft around to be able to fit everybody on that airfield. And that's something that we have to do every day. Right now, our construction projects consist of our taxi and rehab. As you can see there, that is a state and federal grant program. They're not always expeditious on how those work. We have to apply for those and go through the bureaucracy of trying to obtain those monies, and it's very time consuming. But when we do get that, it's a 95-5 split on those. And right now, we are currently in the process of the taxiway and ramp rehab, but that has actually been pushed now into 2023. New hangar development. One thing I did not mention about is what the cost of that would be. We're looking at a maximum of about $2.5 million for those 30, and the survey has been done, and I'll get to that here in a second. We will be redesigning and relocating our fuel farm out there probably in the next 24 months. The fuel farm that we have is an underground system, which is going to warranty out here pretty soon because of the environmental concerns with it, and we'll be going to an above ground system, which probably can be handled mainly between TDEC and TDOT and a little bit of us. Runway and crack repair, that's actually going to happen here in about the next 30 days, and that is 100% FAA grant on that, so there's nothing even on the books for us. I do have some commercial buildings that need to have some repairs on their roof and doors, and that will happen through our NP entitlement funding that we get every year. Basically, it's $150,000 that we use towards maintenance on the airport or any other construction project that may be happening. And so I blocked out $100,000 for that. And as you can see there, next screen here is I can break out all the prices and the year that those things will be handled. Airport overview. So you can see the yellow square down there. That tells you the area where the new hangars will be constructed. The area is owned by the city and the county collectively, and it represents about 7.4 acres, and it's just enough room to fit exactly 30 hangars and have enough room to be able to taxi around safely without any incident. And lastly, this is the hangar survey that has been done by a local company, and this is kind of what it would look like once it is constructed. And if you don't mind, I'd like to have Paul come up. Paul, you want to join me? Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Good evening. Hope you all have a copy of the proposed budget. And this
Yes.
budget is,
in your packet.
includes all the expenditures and revenues related to having the 30 new hangars. So that's the assumption. So if the 30 new hangar project does not go through, then everything, for example, the tenant revenue, the flowage revenues, things like that are going to be reduced to closer to what they are today. So if this project goes away, this year's budget is going to be real close to what next year's budget is going to be a lot closer to the budget we're now in. So I just wanted to get to the bottom of page 2. We put all the additional revenue in, we've accounted for additional expenditures, and we came down to the end. The net income was $48,127. Now, the debt service for the airport, for the hangars, it's a 25-year note, basically, is what we're assuming, with a debt service of approximately $167,000. The airport board proposes using the net income of $48,127 as our share of the debt, generate as much as we can to support the debt. We get more net income over the years, we may not have to require quite as much from the city because that's a fixed debt. It's going to be the same from year to year. So once you back out the $48,167 from the annual debt service of $167,000, you're left with about close to $120,000. And we're respectfully requesting that the county and city consider splitting the remainder of the debt service to fund this project. And that's what the $59,438 is.
Okay. All right, as you know, that we will be going into budget discussions and sessions. We have one coming up 2 weeks from now. That's how our budget works. Any questions? Yes, sir.
Yes, for a long time, I've been a proponent of the airport. As the city grows, I want the airport to grow. And especially in that transit aircraft, I'm gonna go back 20 years ago, when we started increasing our manufacturing. You know, we know that all these corporate jets will be coming in and stuff, you know. And we were looking forward to having, that's when we redid the runway. So I'm very proud of the work that was done. And we need to work together because as we grow, as we want, I'm gonna say America and the Southeast especially to see us, you know, we need a quality airport. So thank you guys for what you've done.
Can I add something before I go?
Okay, go ahead.
Tagging on to the retail gentleman that came up here, this fits into perspective that when people come in to look to put businesses, that you have your infrastructure in your airport. Airports are a big driver. We
Really
can
is.
support a lot of things out here, but just because they're not flying a jet in particularly, they may be flying in a turboprop or a really expensive single engine, there's still businessmen that are coming in wanting to do business in our community. And we're getting a lot of that right now in our numbers, and our numbers prove it. So, if there's any data that you all want for that, that's something that we can deliver from my office. That's not a problem. But we definitely are looking to compete, with the Gallatin and the John II, but we can compete differently. The other airports like, Gallatin and John II and Clarksville, they have a different business plan, and they're trying to bring in as many jets as they can, and they're shoving out the propeller guys. It's prime. It's us for the taking. It really is. And so we can really structure the boom on our airport to become the next airport that, we're not so jet driven. We can handle it, but it's not the storage of. We can really make a difference in the turboprop industry and the prop industry.
Sort of the hub.
Yes,
Okay.
yes, absolutely. Thank you so much for your time.
Other questions? Don't run away. We may have some discussion and we may need your questions answered from y'all.
First of all, I would want to commend the airport. I think y'all have done a great job out there with the new terminal. The look is great. You've done a lot of good work, but I will say to you, I have some concerns about this budget. My question would be maybe to Mr. Martin, and he may remember, as a city, we gave to the airport $500,000 2 to 3 years ago for the terminal and other things. Was that presented to us in their budget, in their annual budget, when it came before this board at that time?
So the reality there is that they weren't presenting an annual budget at that time. That was something that was discovered. Ms. Barty is nodding is shaking her head yes, because that was something, a requirement that's grounded in state law that was discovered 3 years ago. And so in 2019 is when we brought you the first airport budget that was required to be approved. They were passing a budget. It just wasn't coming to the city and the county. So Ms. Holt began that in 2019, and so this is the third budget you've seen. So, excuse me, I don't know if it was included. I would presume that it would have needed to have been included in their budget.
But as this rolls out each year, the city and the county per se is not putting money into their annual budget, but it is required that both entities approve their budget for them to operate. Is that correct?
That's correct. We approved their budget, but the airport has been self-sustaining.
I would have to go on record tonight saying I cannot support this as presented to us for the very reason you're asking us as a city to commit $1 million to this airport budget, and we ourselves have not even gone into our budget process as of yet. And committing, what, $60,000, I believe you said 25 years, 25 years that you're asking us to commit a $60,000 fee into that when we ourselves have not gone through our budget process. I know Mr. Martin's staff have been working on it, but it has not been given to us as of yet. So based on that, I cannot approve it as it, my vote would be not to approve it as it is, that would come back possibly with your regular budget and then that come before us to see. As a city, we are faced with a lot of expense before us right now. We've got a wastewater plant we've got to build. We're looking at having to look at new fire equipment, probably new police. There's just a lot of expenses out there at this time. So I cannot at this point support this.
Well, and I will commend you for the excellent job you've done and the volunteers in the room that are on the airport board that have been there for many, many years. Airport, as we did the project, was very needed. True. The terminal was very needed. It is one of the first places that a lot of people see when they come into Robertson County, whether it's with Retail Coach or our current companies that already exist here in our plants. And yes, this is a great project, but I totally agree that we've got to talk about this in the budget. Yes, sir.
I would like to say, if we will come back with a balanced budget, if the city
Yes.
and the county feel that they can't fund it. By way of history, every time the city gives the airport money, it was in the city budget,
Right.
okay? When we matched any federal funds, we put it in our budget. I'm sure the county put it in theirs.
Right.
When we funded airport hangar construction, our portion of the debt, it was in the city budget. The budget you did not see was the revenue generated at the airport
Correct.
to run the airport. So just wanted to clarify that by way of edification.
And I would also, like I said, I'm not saying that I'm not willing to look at it
Yeah.
by any means of the imagination. I just cannot commit to it tonight for us to put $1 million to approve your budget when we have not even gone through the budget process ourselves to know what we're looking at and what we're facing as a city.
And we have to do it in proper order.
And
I
that's
agree.
another thing that came up is, we wanted to make sure we gave this due process to you all, not only to the city, but also to the county, in the event that it's not capable to do this in the budget, that we have the permission to go ahead and look for outside investment to come in here and to do the land lease and let somebody else bear the burden of expense. And then it becomes basically our property after whatever 30 years that would terminate. So that would be the next step forward for us to move in the event that you guys don't want to, participate in that development. And it's the natural course for airports when it doesn't go, when you don't get that money from the city or county. Because we're not going to get money from the federal side for it.
Any other questions while they're at the mic? Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. More discussion with our board here about where you want to go with this.
So if we vote yes in supporting this budget tonight, then we're saying we're committing $1 million. Is that correct?
That's correct. If you vote yes, then I will, because currently, our budget is finished. We've wrapped up budget prep, and that'll be delivered to you this week, which I was gonna cover later, but we will go back and put this in the budget, for the upcoming year if you all vote yes on this airport board budget tonight.
But if we vote no, then they come back with a more balanced budget, and then we possibly consider it, what our part of that might be if we choose to have part in that.
That's correct, and they actually passed a budget, they passed their original amended budget, I believe, Mr. Nutting, was balanced without the debt service shown, because that was when discussions were still ongoing. So they can go back to that, I presume they can go back to that well if needed be, and present another budget that's balanced.
Then, but as presented, has the county acted on this budget as you presented it yet?
Yeah, we went to the budget committee tonight, and they were gonna wait to see what you all had to say.
It's the normal procedure, it seems, but that's, so they would not even be taking action on it until their May meeting if they decided to do something. Okay.
So our proper way that we would normally do this would be in our budget session to discuss this.
Which is true, definitely.
Okay? Other discussion?
We want to do our share as far as and I have to reiterate what Mr. Harris says. You know, that's been growing pains, and we need some money. And we have to be careful with our money in order to handle the situation that we have. But the airport still is an important entity in the growth of the city.
It's very important. I certainly agree and back that. I just don't want to get the cart before the horse.
Okay. So I'm understanding that there's no motion on the floor, and we will move on to the next item. Madam Attorney?
You should vote to approve or not approve
Okay.
the budget.
All right.
Their budget as it exists,
As presented to
as
us.
presented. Or you could move to defer it to next month for them to come back with a revised budget.
If the board wanted to take this up at the work session, could they just defer, or
They gotta have a budget.
that way, instead of making a decision tonight, when the board gets to see what our budget looks like and defer, could they defer that decision or move to table or whatever the terminology is?
They can, it can be deferred to the work session, but because that's a special called session, it would just have to be advertised and that a vote would be taken at that time.
So could they defer to the regular May meeting?
Yes.
And discuss at the work session
Yes.
after they, okay.
Absolutely.
Okay.
So since I was a motion maker, yes, I would rather it be deferred to the May.
To the regular May meeting to discuss this. Is that what you're saying?
I'm still somewhat confused on,
I am too.
I mean,
So we can vote
my
to.
question would be, for this capital outlay that you are proposing, does it have to be included in your budget at this time?
Well, I would imagine, just like the city budget, the official budget doesn't begin until July 1st.
Okay.
So,
I mean, I'm thinking I would rather see it come before us outside of their standard budget, and then their budget be adjusted if we decide to do it. I don't see us deferring until May that we're gonna know any more by that particular time than we don't do our third and final vote to the third or fourth week of June
correct.
for the budget. I don't, like I said, I want to understand, we want to look at it and we want to consider it, but I just don't think we can approve
So-
it tonight, so I would think.
Do you
we
want a
would.
motion? We can make a motion to vote on it.
Correct. Or you can make a motion to defer, because my understanding is that this capital outlay is included and the debt service is included in this budget.
So if we vote to not approve it, what happens?
They would come, the airport board would come back at a later time next month, whenever, to present a new budget for us to approve, or for you to approve.
Okay, so they've gotta present us with a budget.
Correct.
Your budget starts July 1st also, just as ours does.
Okay. So what do you wish to do tonight? Do you wish to vote on this, make a motion, or do you we need a motion of some kind?
I just feel if we defer it, we're gonna be in the same boat in May that we're in right now. We're not gonna know for sure.
We made a motion to discuss it.
They made a motion to
Take
discuss, no
no
action, so you
action
can
on the floor.
either amend that motion, or you can defer to a definite time, and you could defer, but you set the time, which you could set for May or the June meeting.
Or we can vote yes or no on how it's presented.
Correct.
I think so. I think that's what Christie said. That's what Christie
So it's on the floor
To vote yes
as
or no.
this or not?
Correct.
Okay. So we've got to vote,
I'm ready to
because
vote.
we don't have an
Unless there-
amendment.
Unless there is an amendment, but I'm not seeing,
Or move, you can either vote or you can move to defer.
Okay? Any more discussion? What is the wishes of this body? We're ready for a vote, if there's no more discussion.
so in voting yes, we approve it as presented, voting no, we do not approve it.
Correct. Am I within the law, Ms. Barty, our city attorney?
Yes, you are. But that means that if we vote not to, if the board votes not to approve this budget, then the airport board must come back next month with a revised budget, new budget, so that this board can approve.
And if we vote yes, we're taking on the debt.
Correct.
$1 million.
Yes, okay. Want to make sure everybody understands this since there was no more discussion. Okay? Anyone like to change their vote? Please record the votes.
Motion fails, 0-7.
Thank you. Moving on to our consent doc.
Mayor, without a disapproval, I move to take it as one.
Okay? We have a motion on the floor to take it as one. Any questions? Any discussion?
Hold on.
Okay. My right hand and my left hand says I have to hold up a minute.
Who seconded?
Motion made by Vice Mayor Harris, a second by Mr. Trotter. Thank you, Alderman Trotter. Okay?
Oh.
Now, any questions as a whole? Ready for a vote? Anyone like to change their vote? Please record the votes.
Motion passes 7-0.
Thank you. Our city manager's report, Mr. Ryan Martin.
Thank you, Mayor. Want to let the board know that we have published the RFQ, or request for qualifications to solicit proposals for the system development charge study that we discussed at our work session. So that RFQ is out there. We will not be able to expect a recommendation until the June meeting. There was just, looking at the timeline, there's really no way to get that done by May and allow consultants. We were actually afraid that it might turn some consultants off if they were only given a 2-week time frame to respond. Because when we put that RFQ together, and Ms. Tillman worked diligently on that, it's exhaustive. I mean, it's an exhaustive list of what all the city does and what a consultant's gonna have to look at. So we're looking forward to that, and we'll have a recommendation for you. We tentatively plan on the June meeting for that. Freedom Fest, so we've kind of teased it, but Freedom Fest is going to be our July 4th celebration this year. It's going to be happening on Sunday, July 4th. We're getting ready to put all the marketing materials and promoting that event, but it will happen at the Robertson County Fairgrounds this year from 3:30 until 9 p.m. I hope I got that right, the time frame right, or close. But fireworks at 9. Okay. And Ricky Skaggs will be the headliner. Grace Baptist is sponsoring the musical entertainment, and they have they have gotten Ricky Skaggs to be the headliner for that. We'll have carnival rides. We're working on securing all of those things, and so we're excited about that event. It ought to be a good family-friendly event. coming up on Sunday, July 4th. We touched on earlier the contractor for the CSX Stormwater Project has effectively completed their work, so we're excited about that. And speaking of asphalt, we mentioned that earlier. Some of you might have noticed some projects around town that are unfinished. One of those would be that the mayor was, someone reached out to the mayor about was the ADA modifications on sidewalks downtown. So the asphalt plant here locally had a fire and has been shut down for a few weeks, and that's where we get our asphalt from, because that's the best way to do it rather than bringing it in from somewhere else cold. And so projects have kind of been on hold, and this is one of those projects. Our work at the CSX site is on hold, and several other projects are on hold right now, including some water main repair sites where we've had to cut pavement are on hold to repair the pavement. So we're asking the public to just bear with us until we can get some asphalt and get that done. I believe the word diversity was just mentioned here, so let me touch on that for just a second.
Yes, it was.
We're beginning some efforts and began some discussions internally about how to improve diversity, equity, inclusion in our hiring processes. We've had some very honest conversations internally about what that looks like, some things that we're doing well and some things that we need to improve on. So we're working on that. One of our largest focuses of that effort will be on the recruitment of minorities. It is staggering the low number of minority applicants that we get. And just in the last 2 years, we've had 9.9% of our applicants have been people of color. So we are going to be placing an emphasis on recruiting more qualified minorities so we can be more representative of the community that we represent. We know several of you have reached out about that. We know we need to do that and qualify. Frankly, we need more qualified applicants, period. The way the unemployment is right now, we're struggling to find qualified applicants for some of our professional and technical positions, but we're going to be making an intentional effort to recruit more qualified minorities. So I wanted to give you an update on that. And then lastly, well, not lastly, but we anticipate having the budget delivered to you this week. I think I mentioned that a few minutes ago. We've put in a tremendous amount of time to put together that budget. Ms. Crockett has worked tirelessly, as she always does, to finalize that. And so we're putting the final touches on that and should have that to you this week delivered. So I'll be reaching out to you. And then finally, our disc golf course opened last Friday at Travis Price Park. It's a tremendously popular. I was at Travis Price Park Friday night, and people were already using it, and they've been playing all weekend. We're really excited about that addition to our parks and recreation system. I want to give credit to Terry Martin and his staff. That kind of came about because a gentleman told us on Friday that he drove through the park. I don't even know where he's from, but he drove through the park and he said, "Man, what a beautiful place. This would be great for a disc golf course." So he reached out to Terry, and Terry, as he always does when someone else wants to put up money, he said absolutely. So so kudos to Terry for always looking for partnerships as a way to diversify our offerings at our parks. And we have a lot more positive things coming there as well. So, Mayor, that's all I have. Oh,
Well,
don't forget about the work session.
I have one, no, we're forgetting something very important. The mayor needs to see each and every one of you, whether you're in the audience or you're watching us live, on Saturday to pick up trash. There's a lot of trash on the side of the roads in the city of Springfield, and it's high time we get it cleaned up. So I'm going to be out picking up trash. I know you're going to ask me if I'm not running on Saturday. No, I'm not running. I'm picking up trash. I encourage all the civic clubs and individuals to come join us, and we want to get this town cleaned up and look all pretty for the summer. Yes, sir.
I have to echo Ryan on the park situations. As you know, I'm out there just about every day. Citizens, please obey the signs. Like on the track, for instance, don't bring motorized vehicles and do wheelers on the track. Obey the fields and stuff. Don't go across the fields and stuff. And, just obey the sign. The guys are doing a great job. But we don't need, since the weather's warming up, yes, I'm fussing. Take care of what your taxes have paid for, okay? So that comes from fussing me.
Question for Mr. Martin.
Yes, sir.
And someone had asked me, just since people are watching tonight, the reasoning behind the July 4th celebration being moved to the fairgrounds, is that more accessible?
It is.
Is that
That
part of that reason?
facility, and so we're thankful for the fairgrounds because they're giving us a great deal. In fact, they're not charging us rent. We've worked out an arrangement with them, so they support the event. It's a much more conducive venue to having an event. Travis Price is a beautiful facility. It's a beautiful park, but it's not good for an event like that.
And on Saturday, they can sign up online,
Yes.
and the times are from 9 to 12. Yes, I will be working from 9 to 12, and I'll expect each and every one of you there too.
And City Hall is the place where they'll come get the supplies.
Okay. Any other meetings adjourned?